Troy, again, we want to express our appreciation of you joining us from the road. And
Sure.
Mackenzie will go ahead and do a brief introduction of the session, and then we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you all so much. So food and agriculture are an integral part of our region's history and land story and the stewardship and sustainability of our resources. And another important consideration when thinking about scaling up local food production is how we can get water and how much to use for growing crops, raising animals, or making and processing food on the Palouse. So this next section will unpack the availability of water and ways we can access it for local food production to help us better understand some potential constraints and the opportunities for scaling up local food production on the Palouse. So with that, I will hand it over to Troy.
Thank you. So we talk about just basic water right basics. So water rights are managed by the states, the individual states, and not by the federal government. In Washington, that's the Washington State Department of Ecology, and in Idaho, it's the Idaho Department of Water Resources. Nobody really owns water. We can only have the right to use it. And water rights are usually attached to the land, but not always. Also, fish have water rights. So they have rights to the water that they're swimming in. In general, in the West, we use what's called prior appropriation doctrine, which means the first in time equals a first in right. So if you were the first person or the owners of your property have been using that water for the longest period of time, then you have the first right to that. So new uses of water have junior water rights, which means those who have senior water rights or have been using it for a long period of time, they get all of their water, and so the junior water rights users will lose all of their water before the senior water rights holders lose any of it. And then pretty much all the water available, at least in the state of Washington, has been allocated and has existing claims on it, or at least that's Department of Ecology sees it that way, and that's what we're dealing with. There are some common misconceptions, which says I will be able to irrigate that green part of my land that I just purchased and turn it green and make it productive. No, you probably don't have water rights to do that, and you can't legally do that. I say I have water from my well, I'll just irrigate my land with that. You can irrigate up to a half an acre of lawn and garden that I'll talk about in a second. But other than that, expanding it beyond that from your well is also not legal, at least. And then there's a stream running through my property, or I'll just use that water, no problem. Well, people downstream are counting on that water. They have rights to that water, and just because it runs through your property doesn't mean that you do or that you can use that water. You have to let it go on by. In general, if it wasn't irrigated in the past, you probably can't irrigate it in the future. If you have parts of your land that haven't been irrigated, it's difficult to say, yeah, go ahead and irrigate that land and plan to expand into that. Can you grow vegetables in Eastern Washington without irrigation? Not really. Wheat, which obviously does pretty well, and other small grains, it matures, it grows, it does a lot of growing around this time of the year. Well, it's growing very slowly, but it grows early in the season, and it can take advantage of frosts. It has deep roots. And the water in the Palouse holds, the soil in the Palouse holds a lot of water per foot of depth, and so it has this ability to take that up and use it, and then that gives it enough water to grow and to finish out the season without irrigation. Vegetables, on the other hand, have a longer season generally and have shorter, shallower root zones, which means they generally can't finish before the season without irrigation. Sometimes maybe certain varieties of vegetables that can grow early in the season when it's still cold, when it's still frost happening, like some brassicas and things, you might be able to do those without irrigation water. There are unpermitted uses, which means you can do without getting the water right, and that's for domestic wells. So if you put in a home, you can punch a well and then pull water out of that well without getting a permit from the ecology to do that. And with that well, you can use that water in your home, and you can irrigate up to a ½ acre of non-commercial lawn and garden. That is and then they actually put a limit on the flow. They said 5,000 gallons per day in Washington. I think it's 10,000 gallons per day in Idaho. They're a little bit more generous. And just as a caution, satellites are making it very easy for ecology to see who is irrigating and who isn't, and how much land you're irrigating. And they've been starting to hand out fines to those who are not keeping the law. So just watch out for that. Stock watering also, if you put, you have unlimited access to water to manage livestock. So you don't have to get a permit to do that. Can you get a new water right? It's unlikely currently. Maybe a transfer, if you have somebody that does have a water right that doesn't need it or doesn't need all of it, then you can transfer that. Usually you can transfer downstream, but not upstream, because fish have water rights and they need that water to be in that stream. And then if you transfer it upstream, then you're taking the water out of the stream for that period of time. Anyway, there's more information in this publication, the Washington Water Rights for Agricultural Producers. And that is it. I want to try to stay on time.
Thank you so much, Troy. That was a great amount of information in 5 minutes. We are going to make sure that that publication that Troy shared is linked on the Food Summit webpage, so you'll be able to access it. We will also be sharing information for the Water Resources Division at Washington State Department of Ecology, so that if you have a specific question, you can talk to their water team.